Tuesday in Melrose Mountain, Tryon, North Carolina. It's going to be in the mid-70s today. There's a light breeze, beautiful sunshine, but there's a storm coming. That's what they say. They say that there's a cold front coming down and that it will bring thunderstorms and the storm coming. And that happened to remind me in Acts chapter 27, a message that I preached about Paul and about the storms of life. You know, we have storms in life, don't we? Times when things don't go exactly the way we want them to. And that's exactly what happened to Paul. Paul wanted to go to Rome. And he didn't necessarily want to go during the stormy time of the season across that body of water. And yet that's exactly what happened to him. If you pick up chapter 27, actually I'd recommend you begin in chapter 26, but if you pick up chapter 27, you see the storms that Paul faced. It says the winds were contrary. Now, if you're sailing a boat, that means you have to tack back and forth, and your progress is very slow. They were contrary to the way that he wanted to go. It says that they sailed slowly, and they had a difficult time. For 225 miles, they were in unprotected waters and contrary winds. Then they pulled into a place called Fairhaven. It would look like a great place to stay for the rest of the winter while the winds and the water were rough. And Paul tried to advise them that there was much danger ahead, but they overruled Paul and they took off again. There was violent winds, it says in verse 13. And in verse 15 and 16, it says they were driven by the storm. They were out of control. The storm was taking control. That happens to me sometimes out on the lake out here when I'm in the boat by myself and the bow is way up in the air and the wind's blowing real hard. It wants to take that bow being way up in the air and use it like a sail, and it's hard to paddle against the storm. Well, that's exactly what's happening to Paul here as they're trying to get to Rome, but the winds are driving them. It says in verses 17 through 19, violently tossed, so violently tossed around that the very thing that would pay their way, the cargo, was tossed overboard. And in verse 20 and 21, it says they were ready to give up hope. Now, I don't know if you can see the parallels of life, but I did. And I thought about how many times the winds seem contrary to the way that we want to go. I thought about how sometimes it seems like we could just pull into safe harbor, but somehow that's just not possible, and stay there. And then I remembered that as I read about the violent winds and being driven by the storm, I realized that sometimes our troubles and our problems and our storms of life drive us out of control. And in verse 20 and 21, when Paul said that they were giving up hope, they were giving up hope. Sometimes the storms of life get so great that we just want to give up. We give up all of our hope. And they said that they didn't see the sun or the moon for days. Seasoned sailors who didn't usually get seasick were so sick that they didn't eat. In verses 22 through 26, Paul was given a message through an angel of God that they were to be courageous, that they would be safe, although they would run aground and although they would lose the ship, that the 276 souls that were on board would be spared. That had to have been a message of hope and encouragement to some, but not to all, because it tells us that some of the sailors decided that they would abandon ship with the few lifeboats that they had, and Paul was given a message that they would perish if they did, and they cut away the right lifeboats. Now there were no lifeboats for anyone to get off the ship, and they would have to trust in what Paul said, which a message from God. Can you see the parallels of life? They'd given up hope. No sun, no stars, no moon. And then a word comes from God. He says, be courageous. I will see you through this storm. It isn't going to be easy. Lots of times it isn't easy in the storms of life. But I will see you through this. What did I get out of this message? What was the key to the message? 3 very great truths about the storms of life. God keeps his promises. He says he'll never test us above that which we're able. And even if he takes us out of this world, if we have Jesus as our Savior, we know we have a better world waiting for us. And God keeps his promises. Secondly, the sea can get rough. God never promised us it would be smooth sailing here on this earth. He told us it could get rough here, but he said, be of good cheer. I'm with you, and I've overcome the world. So the sea can get rough. The third truth is trust in him. If you read ahead in the story, you'll find that not only did Paul get safely off the ship onto an island, but so did all of the 276 souls. Now, the soldiers wanted to kill all of the prisoners so that they wouldn't be held responsible for them having escaped. But even God took care of that. And all 276 were safe on the island. Trust in him. That's your thought for the day. God keeps his promises. The sea can get rough. You may go through some storms of life. But if you'll just trust in him, he'll see you through. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.